Aaron Johnson here, Berkeley Developing Your Artistry class with
Jesse Savio. I play guitar in a band called Kings of Spade, and I guess that's why I'm here today.
So what are you and Kings of Spade currently working on?
Right now we're doing a lot of touring. We tour with a band called King's X, who's musicians who are in the know. I'm sure most people who are seeing this are going to know King's X. They're like the band that never got famous, but all the musicians love them. Dimebag Darrell has gone on record saying that without King's X, Pantera wouldn't exist. Slash loves King's X and Doug Pinnick and all those guys. So we have the same management as them, and they just put us on the road with them whenever they go out. And we take whatever other opportunities we can find. So we've just been amassing our mainland audience from just keep going out and hitting it.
Sounds like a pretty cool opportunity. Sounds like pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's our approach is kind of old school, in my opinion, in just the way that we're not at all very good at social media or all this do-it-yourself stuff. All that's great and it's wonderful that it's out there, but we pretty much know how to play music, and so our hope is that we can build a product and that people will like the product, and business types will come along and help push the product along.
Cool.
And that's what we do.
So that's what you do. How did you get to this position? How did you get to being on tour with King's X, and what have you done to get up to here?
The King's X thing was pretty cool. It was like a real series of like pleasant coincidences. We were playing on a side stage at South by Southwest, and it was like our first time at South by, and we knew we were going to be playing in front of a bunch of a whole bunch of roaming random people, and we were going to be playing in venues where there was going to be tons of bands just rolling through all day, and sound men who were just mixing one band after the other, and they were probably going to be in a terrible mood. So I was like, I got an idea. Let's bring boxes of excuse me, I happen to have one. Let's bring boxes of chocolate-covered macadamia nuts with us, and we'll give one to every sound guy that we encounter, and we'll say, hey, we're from Hawaii, just wanted to bring you a little something, and then leave them alone.
It's pretty genius. A little bit of aloha.
I figured at the very least, we'll juice them up with a little sugar, and we'll get a good sound mix. And one of the sound guys that we happened to do that with ended up becoming a friend of ours, and he at the time was bass teching for King's X. And he was like, someday I want to get you on the road with them. That would be great. And I was like, I love King's X. I'd love to. The rest of the band hadn't heard of them yet, but now they're huge fans. But regardless, so he then went from being a bass tech to being their front of house and tour manager, and then he was able to get us on. So we did one tour with them, and their management happened to see us on that tour and liked what we were doing, and took us on as a client, and now just puts us on the road with them. But that's how it all started, just like a little pleasantry. Just
a little
like
aloha.
Yeah.
From Hawaii.
Yeah, and he liked our music, which is great. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. He was one of the ones that did, and yeah.
So the band hadn't heard of, the rest of Kings of Spade hadn't heard of King's X.
No.
And they'd only been around for 25 or 30 years at the point.
Right, exactly.
But cool, you mentioned that the guy was their bass tech. Who's their current bass tech for
Me.
for King's X?
That's the other thing I get to do. Is one time we were about to hit on the road with them, and one of their technicians like had a family emergency / drug addiction, and couldn't go. And they were like, "Any of you guys want to be Doug's bass tech?" And they looked at our bass player first, and he was like, "I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Oh, I could do that. Sure. I know how to change bass strings and set up amps." So it's actually a pretty cool gig. I get like a per diem every day, like a little bit of cash to eat with, and a little bit of cash per night, and it really makes the whole touring thing more easy to do. So we go on stage, we do our set, get our stuff off real quick. I literally change shirts and hats because I'm soaking wet, and I change into all black, and I run back out and plug him up, and then stand on the side of the stage and make sure he doesn't fall over.
Do you have any formal music education?
Very little. Very little. I had 2 different guitar teachers when I first started playing. Like as a teenager, just getting a guitar and taking lessons at the local music store, and I did learn from those guys, but I was much more into the sort of exploration of the guitar and not really the regurgitating of things. I mean, I like learning songs and covers and stuff, but I was much more interested in, after you learn this song, what are the chords you just learned from playing it, and then how then can you experiment with them, and I did actually attend Berklee for a week one time. Right before my senior year of high school, I went to their guitar sessions in the summer, guitar summer camp.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. Interesting environment to be surrounded by just guitar players. I mean, that's a kind of a particular, personality. And to just have them all in the same room, and everyone's like, everyone's either like trying to play the fastest sweep arpeggio they can, or you're the other guy who's like, I don't give a shit about sweep arpeggios. So it was a super fun time. Wake up in the morning, eat in the Berklee cafeteria, which is super good food. Guitar classes all day long, jamming in the evenings, hanging out with a bunch of musicians, constant arguments. It was awesome. I'd say that's my most formal education. Yeah.
I'm hoping to do something like that next summer.
Oh, you
head
love
on
it.
out to Boston and get to take advantage of some of their summer programs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, it's like, just an amazing experience overall.
So how old were you when you started to play?
Guitar? I started to play guitar at 13. I played drums before that.
Cool.
I started taking drum lessons in the 3rd grade, and air guitar, I think, before I could even walk. I was always pretending to be playing an instrument. There's always music on in my house, so I would always pretend to play along. And I liked drums, but I didn't like practicing drums. So I would sit down and like play as hard and as fast as I could for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then stop playing. And at that age, like 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, I had no one to play with. And playing drums just by yourself, that wasn't fun to me. If it's fun to someone else, more power to you. But guitar, when I got that at 13, I could play songs. Like drums, you sit down and you're like, hey, check this out, I learned how to play Octopus's Garden. And someone's like, that's not Octopus's Garden. You're like, well, it would be if you heard the other music, But guitar, you can play it and sing along, So it's like sort of like a Spinal Tap thing, like you would hear it
If it were playing.
if it was playing. So yeah, guitar I picked up at 13, and then I've been just doing that ever since.
And so how did the band get its name?
Kings of Spade. Yeah. So we used to be called X Factor, and some of our band members thought that was the stupidest name ever, and then some of us thought it was the greatest name. And I don't know, it's a name, whatever. There's a band called Limp Bizkit that was huge, so what's in the name? But then American Idols in England, that's called X Factor. And then the X Factor show started becoming more popular over here. And then when we were just about to put out our first record, we were like, we got to change our name. We're going to run into, copyright infringement, licensing issues, whatever. So our singer, who happens to be female, she wanted to call the band Queen of Spades, and that was quickly dismissed. It's dudes in the band otherwise. We're like, we're not going to be in a band called Queen of Spades. Like, sorry, not happening. And then and she was like, how about The Spades? And we all thought actually that was kind of a cool name. That's fine. But at the time that we were making this band name change, that was the time of MySpace bands. And so what we were doing, we were sitting in our living room, so we all lived together at the time. Someone would throw out a name, and then whoever was sitting at the computer would look and see if there was a band on MySpace already called that. And there always was. So there was already a band called the Spades and whatever. And so we started experimenting with different variations of Queen of Spades. Different royalties and different pluralities, moving it around. And then eventually someone was like, how about Kings of Spade? More than one king, only one spade. And looked it up online. No one owned the .com, so right on. There was no other band on MySpace called that. So we're like, Kings of Spade. It sounded cool. It didn't really, it has sort of a royal kind of factor in it. It also has like a group element to it, you know, and then you can all be the kings of whatever being Spade is. My singer, she had to look up Spade and see what that sort of meant. If we are the kings of this thing, what is this thing we are the kings of? It's got to mean something to me. So we looked it up and we found that it means to, one of the definitions of it means to speak bluntly and from the hip, which she does. So she was on board. We liked the sound of it. .com was available. No other bands called that. Kings of Spade.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is next for Kings of Spade?
You know, we're kind of just continuing on this path we're on. As I said, hopefully it continues to rise. We're at a point now that we were hoping to be at 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we were like, man, I just want to be touring more. I just want to be on the road, you know. And now we are, and we're like, fuck, we are spending a lot of money on plane tickets. And we make money on the road, but we don't make as much as we put into it currently. We make a little bit from the shows, we make a little on merch, and we all come back home and we bust our asses at our jobs to support our touring habit. And hopefully what comes next is that it kicks over into the next level. Because, you know, before you're at this level, you're at this local level where you're not even touring. You know, you're playing shows around, and it's great. And then maybe you tour once, and then you come back. Being from Hawaii, it's a whole different thing. You know, a tour is a big deal here because of the just amount of effort to put into it to go anywhere. You got to get on a flight for 5 hours.
Money and logistics.
Absolutely. So, what's next for us in the immediate future, realistically, is we have another tour coming up in the mid to end of November in the Northeast. We've got a couple of shows in New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania, and our management has been pushing us out there to labels. As I was saying at the beginning, we have a bit of an old school approach to it where we are still trying to get a label to pick us up as an artist. You know, I mean, at a certain point, if we didn't need a label and enough people were just buying our records just from seeing us on tour, great. So currently we're just eking it out, you know, just keep grinding, you know, just tour, and little by little we see more and more sales from CD Baby. Little by little, when we hit a town again, we see more and more people coming out with our shirts on. So in the immediate future, it's that next tour, and keeping at it until you know, the next thing clicks, which hopefully it does.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, thank you for taking the time to
No problem.
sit down with me, and I hope my class enjoys this interview.